Hey, Multipliers, this is Josh Foliart, the founder of Multiply Global. We think you are going to absolutely love today's podcast with my former coach, Houston Nutt. But before we jump into the conversation, I want to invite you to participate in a brand new opportunity called the Stadium Run. Over the last decade, we have learned that many people can feel powerless to bring real, sustainable, global impact. And so that's why we created this opportunity. The Stadium Run is a 21-day team experience that turns your walking or running miles into global impact through Multiply. You can find out more information and sign up at thestadiumrun.com. Hey, this opportunity is really a simple and fun way for your family and friends to join you in multiplying the gospel to all nations. The challenge starts on November the 10th, so don't wait to sign up. You can go to thestadiumrun.com. Now, let's get to today's episode with my former coach, Houston Nutt.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Multipliers Leadership Podcast. My name is Joseph, and we're joined with our founder, Josh Foliart for Multiply Global, and I am so excited for our guest today. We have the privilege and opportunity to be with Coach Houston Nutt. Being a longtime Razorback fan, I'm excited to be able to have him on the podcast today, but he's not just that. He's everything from an athlete to a coach. He's a grandfather. He's done a little bit of everything. Broadcasting, man, he is a man that you want to continue to be able to get to know. But also he loves Jesus, and we can't wait to be able to hear a little bit more about that too. But Josh, you and him go way back. So actually, Coach, let me do this first. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Easy on that athlete now. Easy on that right now.
No, it's still there. It's still there. I'm keeping it.
I remember when you guys used to run up and down the court at the Hyper back in the day, Coach. Man, that was some intense ball.
It really was.
I'm so grateful that you said yes to allowing us to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
And I'm just, as I was preparing for this, reflecting back on that 98 season, and so many memories are popping up for me. But I remember specifically, I was a walk-on, and Decker, man, he's a different character, man. I love Coach Decker. He ended up introducing me to my wife. I don't know if you know that part of the story.
I forgot that.
He introduced me to Cassandra. But before all of that happened, he kicks me out of the weight room because he just doesn't have enough room for everybody. You remember that weight room?
Yeah.
And man, I was destroyed. And I come and I'm like, well, I'm going to go to a higher authority. And so I'm like, I knock on Houston Nutt's office's door. Clorinda lets me in. I book an appointment, and I'll just never forget you championing me being a part of those workouts. And I remember the challenge you gave me. You said, hey, we're going to make this happen. He goes, but I want to see you on the kickoff team next year. I want to see you go and compete and earn a spot. And it just meant so much to me that you would fight for me. And you probably don't even know that part of the story, and probably don't remember that conversation, but I do clearly. I also remember us that 98 year, that Wednesday night when we had gotten our rings. And I believe that's the night that Brandon Burlsworth passed away. We were all together in that space. That was a special team. That was a special year. And a lot of people still reference that year as such a beautiful year of Razorback athletics, Razorback football in particular. Yeah. Coach, what did that team mean to you? What did that year mean to you?
Josh, I tell you what, it was probably one of the most special years of our lives. Remember, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah.
I wanted to grow up to be a Razorback, to play. The last thing I thought I'd ever do was lead a team out of that tunnel, through the A. Even though it's the dream way back, it's kind of like going to the NBA or NFL. I had all those dreams,
Yeah.
But I never thought really deep down inside that would happen. So to go through the Murray State journey, Boise State, and to get that call from Frank Broyles to say, come back and lead our Arkansas Razorbacks, I just can't tell you and put it in words what that felt like. But when I got there, I never will forget, Josh, of looking at Clint Sterner, Anthony Lucas, Ryan Hale, Zach Painter, Chakuma, I can name them all.
Jeremy Flowers.
Grant Garrett. And I asked Dean Weber, I said, Dean, I know I've only been a small-time coach, Murray State, Boise State, I was an assistant, at Oklahoma State, an assistant at Arkansas. What am I missing? When I look at these guys physically, they look good to me. Joe Dean Davenport, 6'7", tight end.
Yeah.
And he says, I never will forget. I was in his office, him and I think Lewis Campbell was there. He said, they haven't won. They don't believe they're going to win.
Mm.
And it really hit me hard, like, well, these guys are big, tough, good-looking guys on the outside, but on the inside, it's kind of like he was telling me, no confidence. They've gotten beat over and over and over, 4-7, 4-7. And so I felt this awesome responsibility. There's only one reason that I got to be the head coach of the University of Arkansas, and it was God. It was the only way, because my resume
100%.
wasn't thick enough. If you look at the other 14 candidates, they'd already been head coaches a lot longer than I. And a lot of people wanted Tommy Tuberville. A lot of people wanted Francione, all these names. So I felt this overly awesome responsibility of, man, I want to please the state, please our fans. And most of all, I want to take these players, I want to take them where they can't go by themselves. And so to answer your question, Josh, we started getting, as best I could, I wanted to get as close as I could to you guys, close. And I remember Russ Brown kind of giving me, that side eye look like, are you really for real? Or, are you just going to be a cheerleader every day? Because I'm used to getting cussed out, And so it took a while to kind of develop that relationship, Josh. And I started going, I had Clarinda, I said, guys, I don't know if you remember this, Josh. I had, hey, everybody sign up for a one-on-one meeting. I wanted to meet everyone in my office one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I only had about 50% of the guys would show up. So I started going to some apartments. Back in the day when I played at Arkansas, we all lived under one roof, Joseph. So things were, a lot different because only freshmen could live on the campus. So they could live in apartments, condos. They're 4 blocks. They're a mile, 2 miles. So I started going, knocking on the doors, 10 o'clock unannounced.
There you go.
The looks I got from Kanoy Kennedy and these guys like, what are you doing here, coach? Come to see you.
Yeah.
And it kind of started like, oh, okay. And then I had you over my house to eat. And so things I could tell, man, we're starting to kind of build this relationship in the spring. But Josh, I was so nervous, man. I was so nervous building up to that first game. Can we do this? Can we really do it? Because you guys were tough and hard workers. And one of the reasons I fought for you is because I just felt like, man, this guy wants to be here and he works hard. You had this mindset, Josh, that I loved of, I want to do something. And he kicked me out of the weight room. And so that bothered me. So I told Don, hey, Josh is in that weight room, man. Let's make room for him. And so Decker was so good and he did that. And that's just one of the little things. But as it got going, I just felt like I kept getting closer and closer to you guys. So I just felt blessed, man, to be able to be called coach for the Razorbacks.
No doubt. Wow.
That is really good. And I just love the heartbeat of being able to be close to the men there and instill the confidence within them. That's definitely a heartbeat within us, within Multipliers, to pull out the best within men, men and women, but definitely men, and be able to see them walk in their full potential. And Coach, I mean, obviously sports have followed you for really your entire life, or a big part of your life. Why do you think that has always been such a staple? Like, why is that something you're always involved in, always go back to, or involved in? Talk to us about why that's just such a heartbeat for you.
Well, I was such a fortunate victim of circumstance to have a mother and father that gave us 4 boys. I was the oldest of 4 boys. And they gave us the most important thing. They gave us time and love. And I was 3 blocks from the Arkansas School for the Deaf. That's where we lived. My father was the basketball coach, football coach, track coach, and bus driver. And I was the gym rat. I was the guy that handed out bologna sandwich after each game. That was my job. I was to mop the floor and hand out these bologna sandwiches after each game. And I always fired up to be able to hand out these brown sack lunches of bologna sandwich, potato chips, and an apple. And it was awesome. So while I grew up, my dad played for 2 of the greatest basketball coaches in the world. Adolph Rupp at University of Kentucky and Henry Iba at Oklahoma State. My dad's roommate was Eddie Sutton at Oklahoma State. So we grew up with ball. We didn't have any distractions with iPads or games. You know, when I play with my grandsons, you know, the first thing they grab sometimes is iPad to play a game. Yeah. I'm constantly pushing it to the side. Nope, going outside.
Get a basketball in here.
Let's go outside. Let's play the ball.
That's it. We're going to go play ball. And so I grew up with that, with three brothers of playing ball, basketball, football, baseball, year round. And with your father being a coach, your mother a teacher, you know, that was the background. And what I love so much about the deaf school, not only my immediate family, we had such a tight-knit group, but the deaf school, I don't know if you realize this, there's only one deaf school in each state. So they have to leave home at the age 3, 4, and 5 years of age. Wow. And they didn't care where you're from. They didn't care what color your skin was. As long as you could sign,
you're in
the family.
Wow.
And so that taught me a great deal about all these different backgrounds. They didn't care where I was from. They didn't care the color of my skin. They didn't care the color of my skin. As long as I could sign, I was in their world. And so there was the extended family. And so those were just great times. So I grew up, Joseph, just playing ball just about year round. And I had one goal by the time I was 9 years of age. I'm going to the NFL, NBA, or both. That's all I thought about. Until that dreaded day I was always picked first. I was very tall by the 7th grade. I was always picked first. Went to Little Rock Central, won a lot of championships. Had over 250 collegiate scholarship offers. So everything's kind of going according to plan until that dreadful day. For the first time in my life, my name wasn't called on draft day. And you talking about devastation, to think about athletic termination. It's over. And I was distraught, man. And I'm thinking, dear God, I thought we already had this worked out. Yeah. I thought I've gave my life to you when I was 10 years of age. I had over 250 college. I could go play for Bear Bryant, Dick Vermeil, Frank Broyles. I could play for them all. And we were going to go pro. And he had a different plan for me. And the plan was, I never will forget sitting in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Jimmie Johnson comes up to me. I spent about 48 hours with the Atlanta Falcons. Didn't go very well. And basically it was kind of a walk-on tryout. So long story short, he said, what are you going to do now? And I was going to give him a great answer. I'm going to still be in that weight room. I'm going to keep working out because I know I'm supposed to be in the NFL, NBA, or both. And Jimmie Johnson looks at me and says, you know, hey, that's good, but here's what you're going to do. You still like 3 hours? I said, yes, sir. You're going to live in the IBA athletic dorm. You're going to be my freshman coach, and you're going to check classes. You're going to make sure they're on time. You're going to make sure they go to the weight room and do what's right. I said, yes, sir. But underneath my breath, I'm thinking, who does this guy think he is telling me I'm going to be in the dorm? He's been on a job, not one hair out of place. He uses consort hairspray. I think
Jimmy.
I think he is.
That's Jimmy, yeah.
Little did I realize, if I would have told him no, he would have had 50 resumes on his desk. He could have added any other GA in America.
Wow.
But here's the day that changed everything, guys. It's the night before conditioning test. Unlike Josh's time where they worked year round in the summer, these guys went home for the summer basically, and they came back for the conditioning test. And I never will forget, I'm in the IBA hall dorm, my little dorm room, 5 little 18-year-olds, freshmen, come to my room, and they said, Coach Nutt. And I literally had to look around and say, who's that? Oh, that's me. It's the first time I was called Coach Nutt in 1982 or 81. And I couldn't believe it. And they said, Coach Nutt, what's Coach Johnson going to do to us tomorrow, the conditioning test? Their eyes were so big. And I can't tell you the feeling that I had when the dreams were in the palm of my hand. Every word they were just hanging on to every word. I knew that night that God put me in that room for a reason. I was supposed to be a coach that night, 1981, because these 18-year-olds were hanging on to every word that I said. And it was just a feeling like I couldn't get over. And so I couldn't wait to go tell Dinah, who was my girlfriend at the time. I said, you're not going to believe this. Jimmie Johnson bragged on me about the freshmen. They didn't pull on the fire alarm. They didn't break curfew. knock a window out. And he bragged on me in front of like Dave Wannstedt, and sometimes the one that love you, they pour cold water on your dime and say, "Now wait a minute, is this where you live in the boys? Is this where you make $1.65 an hour?" See, you got to realize, Joseph, she was a geology major. She already graduated. She is a geologist. She had things like a checking account. She had like a couch, a refrigerator. She had a washer dryer. She had real life things living in a condo, and I'm sitting in a boys' dorm. She said, "Are you sure this is what you're supposed to do? Are you sure God's telling you to be a coach?" Yes. Well, you're going on about your third. Now I'm going on about my third or fourth year as a grad assistant. Same pay. And so you can imagine in her mind thinking, "Wait a minute. Am I going to marry this guy?
What am I about to sign up for?"
Yeah. So he went through a lot of struggles right there, but I just knew that was what I was supposed to do because of that connection with those 18-year-olds, that had these dreams.
Man, I love it. Coach, you mentioned something earlier talking about when you were tapped by Frank Broyles to come to the University of Arkansas, that you felt like there was one reason. It was God through Frank Broyles inviting you to be a part of his story. And I honestly can't imagine Houston not being a part of the Razorback legacy and the story. Yeah. And I'm personally grateful for that. But being a Division I coach, in particular in the SEC, brings tremendous pressure. Brings tremendous pressure. I want to talk because there's a lot of leaders listening that deal with pressure. As a leader and as a younger coach in the SEC at that time, I don't remember how old you were at that time, but I know that you were younger and you had hired a younger coaching staff as well. In fact, you brought Chris Vaughn on, who was 23 at the time. He was my position coach. Man, I love that guy so much to this day. Incredible, man. But talk to us just about how you learned how to handle that constant 24-hour news cycle pressure.
Yeah. Well, it's such a great question. Growing up as a quarterback, there's always 3rd and 8. And I could always handle that pretty good. The thing that was really tough, and I'm so glad I had Murray State 4 years to kind of let me learn without having so many eyes on top of me, without all that immense pressure. When you talk about Arkansas, Josh, and you hit it, SEC. Yeah. They put your salary out in the paper. Yeah. They know from Monday through Sunday what you're doing. All eyes are on you. And I'm always used to always tell our coaches, "Hey guys, all eyes are on us. Whether you're in a grocery store, whether you're in the catfish hole, whether you're at Doe's, no matter where you are, all eyes are on you." And so I wanted our players to see, I always like for them to bring their kids to practice because a lot of our players, Josh, a lot of your teammates, as you know, only came from a one-parent home. And a lot of times the father was missing. So I wanted our players to say, so that's how Coach Nutt talks to his wife. So I went to his house. So that's how Coach Nutt talks to his daughter. That's how he talks to his son. And I wanted our players to see that. And so there was never any pressure when I was with the team. There was never any pressure on the practice field. That was the love of it. It wasn't a job. It was the love. The pressure came is when it got down to reality of Coach Broyles said it the best. He'd say, "Houston, I love that your players graduate. I love that they're involved in the community, but I pay you to win." Now,
as clear as it gets.
And so the thing that was so difficult is when things weren't going right, you're at the top. And so I would always tell all the leaders, to me, there's just no way, unless there's a relationship with a higher power, unless there's a relationship with God, I don't see how they do it. I don't see how it's possible because it's lonely at the top. When you're winning, there's no problem. Everybody loves you. Everybody wants to jump on the wagon. But when things go bad and when the world says, "I confess, it's your fault." It ain't my fault. It's your fault. And that's where your leader has to really step up. And so I go back again. I was fortunate to have mother and father who gave us time, who gave us great direction. and always taught us right. And then I had the fortunate victim of circumstance to be around Jimmie Johnson, Frank Broyles, Lou Holtz, Eddie Sutton, Pat Foster, Gene Cady. So players were watching. And so I wanted to be that father figure, and I wanted to be that leader for them no matter what happened. I would close the door on the outside noise. I don't care. And that's one thing I think we always did a good job of is even when we were winning the Western title or we beat Alabama, I tell them, hey, next week's coming, guys. We can enjoy it right now, but let's just don't get too high. And so we didn't try to get too high or get too low. And especially with the losses, I'd probably tend to go the other way when we didn't play well. I would try to really go hard to lift them up, maybe even cut a period here or there. I'd go the opposite way. And I would constantly always tell our team, I can live with anything that happens as long as I know that you're giving me all you have. As long as I know you're giving me your best. But I would really try to take the blame. If we lost, hey, it's my fault. And that's what, to me, leaders, it's hard for them to do that. It's hard for a leader to say, it's me. That was my plan.
It's on me.
You know, and you got to be able to do that. And I think the other thing is this. To be a great leader, you got to be able to serve. If it's below you to serve, it's going to be beyond you to lead. You've got to serve.
That's right.
I don't care if you're the head coach of a corporation. I don't care if you're a CEO. I don't care what you are. If you're the president, you got to serve. And your teammates have got to see you serve. Your players have to see you serve. I wanted them to see me pick up a Gatorade bottle that I asked them to put in the trash. I wanted them to see me maybe pick up tape in the locker room. I wanted them to see that I would get down there and serve with them. And I'm with them. Win or lose, I'm going to be with you. And the greatest feeling I always get, Josh, is when a player, just like talking to you right now, 15 years, 20 years ago, they say, Coach, it was truly the best days of my life. When you came to my dorm room, when I felt like I lost the game and you picked me up. That's the greatest there is. One of the greatest rewards there is. Hey, Coach, I'm the father that I am today because of my 4 years with you at Murray State. It's one of the greatest rewards I can get. And so the one good thing I always put in my mind about the pressure, Josh, is this. One day I won't be judged by the wins. I won't be judged by how many yards we got or how many touchdown passes. I won't be judged, by what I did on this earth for him. And so I always try to put that in deep in my mind because I know he was the reason you put me here. You put me here, God. I know you're the only one that put me here. Help me through this. Help me through this time and let me just shield off all the things that are coming at me. Because it's amazing how quickly that the first 4 years was like, it was unbelievable how you're up here. And it didn't take long. One little 2-3 game losing streak was, I forgot how to coach and how many things. And what makes it so tough, Josh, it's not me. I can get lost in a film room. It's my wife going to the grocery store. It's my children going to school where the teacher makes a joke about their father. It's cruelty. It can be so cruel to them. And so that's where sometimes you got to call team meetings at home. Be that leader at home. And handle all those kind of things, because the devil, he's working 24/7, buddy. He don't stop.
Man, powerful.
I think there's a lot of richness within there. Coach, I would love even just to stay right where we're at for just a second, even just talking about your family. Coach, I'd love to know just what does it mean to really lead your family? Like, how do you approach that? And how is that different from your coaching perspective and how you're pulling out the best within people? We'd love I know you're a good family guy. You're a grandfather that loves his grandkids. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sometimes I felt like the college, it's so tough because of recruiting. And I got to watch a lot of other people's sons. And I always felt like I left my son out a little bit. I always felt bad about that because I couldn't always go to his Friday night games because I was with the team. And it always bothered me. I couldn't always coach him like some of the other fathers did in Pee Wee or, YMCA ball or whatever it may be, Little League, baseball. So I always felt like, I left something out right there. And when I look at it now, it takes a real team. Especially handling 4 children, and especially when they start getting up 6th, 7th, 8th grade,
Yeah.
Boy, that's when, boy, the other classmate, and when daddy's not doing good, because they all know what their daddy's doing. Your daddy's losing today. They knew the score, and they would remind my children what the score was. So those things were tough, but it's just constantly trying to bring them in and let them know, look, hey, we're together. Don't worry about anything. And we try to put everything the right way. They always knew this. They always knew where we were going to go on Sunday, win or lose. They knew we were headed to church. And so a lot of times Houston, my son said, Dad, we're not going to church today, are we? Yeah. Dad, are you sure? After yesterday? I said, yeah, we're going. So, and that was some of the biggest some of the biggest pats on the back we got was sometimes from HD, some of the people in that fellowship church that at UVC, they would say, Coach, thanks for coming today. Didn't expect to see you. So, I think you just got to keep everything in perspective. But again, boy, it takes a team.
Wow. Coach, you recently were inducted into the Arkansas Hall of Honor. I had the privilege of being there on that night. You invited the players in the room onto the stage with you, of course, giving the credit away, not making it about yourself, making it about the team. You've always done that. But what did that represent for you? What did that mean for you so many years later?
Josh,
coming back?
It was so humbling to get that call. And again, I wouldn't have been there without you, without your teammates. And I know that. All those players that came out of their way, Quentin Caver and Kenny Hamlin, Eddie Jackson, Sean Andrews, there's a lot that came that took on their own dime, flew from Houston, Texas. Sean from Little Rock, drove up. All these different guys just came up. And Norm DeBryan mentioned that he'd never seen that many of former players show up at an induction.
Wow.
And that meant the world to me. And so when I'm looking at y'all in the audience at the end, and I know we're all given 5 minutes, so I'm trying to hurry, but I'm thinking, I can't go. I can't end this thing until these players are up here with me. And so I wanted them up there with me so bad, and because they're the reason and the sole reason. And it's so humbling, felt so good. All my family was there. Beautiful. And to see y'all on stage with me, it just meant so much.
I love it, Coach. Man, I love being, you and I staying connected, and it's a testament to your character and your walk with Jesus that you take time for guys like me. I mean, I'm not one of the guys that are super highlighted and get publicized or put in the paper, people even know about, and I'm okay with that. But you've always made time for me, and to me that speaks volumes. And you talk about serving. You've definitely served our organization, been a supporter. I mean, you've just really showed up. But I would love and I had the chance to sit across the table from you in McKinney, Texas, and have some breakfast together. And I got to hear a little bit of this. I'd love for our listeners to hear this. What does your walk with Jesus look like on a day-to-day basis? What does Coach Nutt and his walk with Jesus look like?
Well, I'm always so grateful for what Jesus has done for me. Sometimes I feel like I let him down sometimes, because I feel like I should be doing more. But the thing that comes back from that little bitty boy, when Mom always took us in Sunday school, I had the greatest Sunday school teacher. And I never forget, one of the teachers would say, is your light shining? Is your light shining? And I'd go home. I think I was about 8 or 9. I asked my Mom, is my light shining? She says, well, you gotta. I said, what does that mean? That teacher keeps saying, she keeps asking me in Sunday school, is my light shining? And my mom explained it so clearly. She says, listen, what she's asking you, are you shining that light for Jesus? When people see you, is that light shining? Do they know? And so, that was a big impact on me. So I wanted them to know by, especially around others and my teammates from junior high to high school, I didn't want to use the wrong words. I wanted to do things the right way because I wanted my light to shine. And so that to me is what it's all about. Man, I want to win games. I really do. I wanted to win games. I wanted to win championships. I wanted our guys to go to the NFL. But I tell you, what was really important was being able to have an atmosphere of where a young man, he wouldn't shy away from coming to my office to ask me about. I never will forget at Murray State, where a young man had a terrible home life, and he had a brother that committed suicide, and he had a father been in penitentiary. He had all these things, and he said, "Hey, it's just not worth it." And to be able to share with him, yes, it is. Yet it is worth. You got somebody that loves you so much, that died for you, that he loves you so much, and he has a plan for you. You got a plan for me? I have a father in the prison. Coach, you don't know what I've done. I said, well, we've all fall short. We all do. But he has a place for you and a plan for you. And for his eyes to open up, and to this day, we talk to this day, he calls back, says, never will forget that day in that office. We won the OVC championship. We got the ring. But my biggest ring I got, Coach, was I was saved. Now, to me, that's what it's all about.
That's right.
And so, it's hard sometimes to witness, to somebody, even if, you don't know them real well, or you feel like you may be put down. But man, that's the game. Now, that to me is the real game. That's the most important thing. And so that's where I feel like I let him down sometimes, because I've had opportunities when I speak to groups, and there'll be a time where, I feel like we're getting close to a conversation here with this guy. I think he needs to hear it. I think he needs to hear it. He's a little bit empty. He looks good on the outside, but I think he's a little empty on the inside. And so, Josh, that's constantly what I kind of go through now that I don't have ball. I have a lot of great former players, a lot of great men like yourself that I'm so proud of. And to think I had maybe just a small part is awesome. But now, I feel this responsibility with my grandsons. I feel this responsibility to make sure, boy, hey, they got so many distractions from all these things on TV and on iPads and phones. Man, I want to make sure, boy, they're going right. And it's narrow pathway, And that's so right. Every single day, I try to get up on my knees and let him know how much I love him and how much I appreciate what he's done for me with health, our family, grandchildren. There's so many things, I used to always tell our players, no matter where I was, whether it be Murray State, Boise State, Ole Miss, there'd be somebody with a frowning face and coming walking down the hall or on the field. I said, what's wrong? Johnny, what's wrong? Personal problems. Personal problems. What kind of personal problems? And he wouldn't say it. I said, cancer? Do you have cancer? No, sir. Do you have a brother in Iraq? No. Well, do you have a torn ligament? No. Then you can't have any personal problems. These are the best days of your life. I get to run you. I get to go exercise you, man, over and over. You get to go to school. You get to. Yes. And so, you play with them like that a little bit. But then eventually you want to get to, hey, do you have your real ticket? A lot of times, in recruiting, you'd have like e-tickets. Used to be we had to go buy the tickets. We go recruiting for official visit. And I never will forget with a young man, I'd say, hey, you got your e-ticket? Coach, I got it. I said, okay. Well, one day I did one of these numbers, Joseph, I did one of these. I said, hey, do you have your e-ticket? Yeah, Coach, got it right here. I said, no. I'm talking about your e-ticket. Coach, right here. It's going to get me from here to the city. I'm going to Atlanta. Not Coach. E-ticket. I'm talking about your eternal ticket.
Yeah.
It's that confirmation. I think it's JES. That confirmation number is JESUS. Have you got that one? Have you got that ticket? That's the ticket I want to make sure you got. And so, that kind of deal, I miss doing that with, young people, 18, 19, 20, 21. It's the relationships. That's what you miss the most. So now with the world that I'm in now, when I go speak to groups, it's a little bit because I don't have that relationship. I don't really know a Josh Foley, or I don't know what I'm speaking to a lot of times. So it's harder. So sometimes I feel like I'm letting God down a little bit because I don't jump out there a little bit more, but trying to get better at it.
Yeah,
man, I love it.
Well, Coach, I know that even just listening to you, you've got such a kingdom-minded perspective where it's not just about wins and losses. Actually, that seems like the very tertiary in the grand scheme of things, which is one of the things I really appreciate about you. And I know it's been said before, and I'm going to say it again because it needs to be said. I think you could still be a preacher. It's still in there. It's still in there. We know it's in there. Like I hear it. Like
at the Cotton Bowl, he stands
Let's go,
up
McKinney,
and delivers.
We got a new church coming.
Yeah,
and I'll definitely be at least visiting there. So, but Coach, we have our listeners are a lot of leaders who desire to bring just high impact, kind of a last little encouragement, or even just, hey, take a second to coach us for a second on how to really impact our family, our work, and even just to bring faith into everything. So if you were to talk to our listeners or even us right now, what coaching would you give to us to bring that high impact from a kingdom-minded perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too, I would start with the family. I think, every leader at home is really, boy, don't leave them out. Go the extra effort. Make that little time for lunch, or make that that extra time for that son's ball game or that son's play at school. I think it starts at home to be right there, always supportive. And I know there's some tough love times. I get that. I'm all for discipline, but I think to know that you're there and you're with them and you're so supportive, you're going to be right there to help them. Because as you know, there's down days. I mean, it's tough days. And so who's there? And so I always go back to this, I always used to tell the fathers, hey, go play catch with your son. Because if you don't play catch with him, he'll play catch with somebody else. And you want to make sure it's the right one he's playing catch with. And so play catch with your son, give that time, start there. And then the other thing is in this walk every single day is give time to God, give him his time. That quiet time to me, I think is something special, very special, because he's waiting, he's waiting to hear from you. And it's hard to imagine of millions and millions of people that it's easy to say, he's not waiting on me. But I go by this preacher made it so clear to me. We've all been on a beach. You've been at Destin, or you've been on a beach where you have all these grains of sand. You take your shoes off and you run your feet through the sands. And to think, this preacher made such a great illustration. He says, of all the grains of sand, millions and millions, that's the thoughts that Jesus has for you. To think, now, wait a minute. The grains of sand, the millions and millions of grains of sand, that he knows every hair on your head. He knew you way before you were born. He knows you. So the least we can do is give him time back. He's thinking of us. He has ways for us, ways that are good, not bad, ways that are perfect. He has a perfect plan. So those thoughts, that he thinks about me and he thinks about you, it blows my mind to really think about it. So sometimes you can't lean on your understanding. Don't lean on your understanding. We don't get it. Our mind's too small.
Man, that's right.
Lean not on your understanding. That's one of my favorite verses. But lean on him and he'll show you the way. So I just think it's important. And remember that somebody's watching. Somebody's always watching you. They're watching you. If you're in a corner telling a dirty joke, somebody's watching you. Somebody watches the words you use. Somebody watches how you treat your family, the time that you give to your family. You could be with your family, but you decided to go over here, decided to do this. To me, it's just those little bitty things,
I think that's a really good way for us to be able to wrap our call and even just our time together, coaches. Even just you articulating that he is waiting for you. He's waiting for us. Like, that right there is worth the entire episode right there. And so,
Mm-hmm.
Coach, we thank you for your time with us. There are some really good pieces within there. And I just love how you champion people ultimately
no
to be able to find the greatness within that is given by God and God alone. You're unashamed about that. And so thank you for your time once again, Coach Nutt. Listeners, hey, we'll be back out at this here in a couple of weeks with us. Once again, stadiumrun.com. If you haven't gone on there, we'd love for you to jump on there and see everything that is happening within the Multiply Global family so we can continue to bring hope to the nations across the world. So, hey, we love you guys. Thanks again, Coach Nutt.
Thank you.
So grateful.